is the community healthy first and foremost? Because it's very hard to provide business value if your community is not healthy. What's top of mind for our customers or our community is also going to be top of mind for other customers not in the community, or leads or prospects, and just like the industry at large. It's awesome that some people ask a bunch of questions, but it's even better when they're both asking questions and answering them and sharing how they're doing things.
So today I'm thrilled to be joined by Jocelyn Hsu. She's an expert in customer communities. Jocelyn, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
So Jocelyn, how do you evaluate an existing customer community?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I think it depends a lot on what type of community it is. Like, did it just start last year, or is it a customer community that's been around for 10 years? Because if it's been around for a while, it's really helpful to look at the data, what historical trends are looking like. But if it just started, let's say a couple months ago, you're not going to have all of those historical trends. And so in those cases, I really like jumping in and talking to people. So talking to people in the community, people who aren't in the community, and then also your internal stakeholders. It gives you a good understanding of the context around community. Because sometimes the customer community maybe started up a year ago, but there was an effort to do customer something 5 years ago. But you're not going to know that as someone who just joined the team or who just joined the company. But other people who've been there for a while might. And sometimes actually the customers have better memory than even your teammates because they've been a customer for all 10 years. And so they'll have a good understanding of like, oh yeah, no, they've tried meetups, or they've tried user groups, or they used to do challenges or whatever. And so it's really helpful to just start talking to people and seeing like, what do they remember about the customer community? Why was it started? What do they like? What do they don't like? Gathering historical context, because it kind of helps you understand what's been tried, what may or may not have worked, and what to work on in the future, and what do they want to see changed moving forward. And those are all things you want to know when you first join a team and you're going to start working on that community. And then the other part of it too is if it already exists, start snooping. Like click around, read things, scroll as far back as you can, both. And maybe you have like a customer community channel in your team Slack. Start scrolling through there, see what people are talking about. You can start with like the most active or engaging posts based on, whatever platform analytics you have, but then also just see like, what are people posting today that they're talking about? So really kind of like, I guess, detective work, do that discovery right off the bat.
What kind of data points are you looking for within the community?
Usually I look for a couple of things. One, who's speaking the most, who's asking a lot of questions, who's answering them. And those are people that I will reach out to for those discovery calls to try to get to know them, what they like about the community, why are they active? So that's one group of people that I like to look at, is like who's actually active. Another is just historical trends. One thing that I'm sure we all know, and in like all industries and all disciplines, is sometimes things are active and people are really engaged, and sometimes they're not. So if you're like working with teachers, for example, they're probably a little bit more engaged during the school year than during the summer months. Same thing with parents. They're really busy during the summer taking care of the kids. So like being able to see those trends of when are people engaged and not is really helpful. And then some other data points that I would look at is like, what is really resonating with people. So like if there are people, like let's say there was a community manager in the past and they've been doing quarterly AMAs or office hours, like how many people show up? Is that something that people really like and you should continue doing while you figure out your strategy? Or is it something where like they're doing a weekly welcome email or introductory post and the only other person who liked it is your teammate? Maybe we don't need to do that so much anymore. And so getting a pulse check on what has been tried and what's working and not working to kind of understand the landscape.
From the data points within a community and from the stories you're gathering, how do you start to draw conclusions from that evidence?
I think it's a lot similar to just like regular product user research of seeing what keeps coming up. And I think that has been the most useful. I'll take notes. AI is great for that part of helping me transcribe and note down things, but also as I'm talking to people, paying attention to those trends of, okay, a lot of people have said they really like, I don't know, these cohort-based courses. or people don't understand why we have a community and why they should use it. Not great to hear, but a good piece of feedback to receive. And you want to know that going in. And so really paying attention to like, what do people keep saying over and over again, both from your customer perspective and also internal stakeholders. The other thing I would note is like, I always try to talk to a couple different groups of people. So I mentioned the folks who are really active in the community. Talk to those folks to understand what they're doing, why they're participating and what they like about it, but also talk to people who aren't active in the community. Like maybe they attend your annual conference, but they're not active in the community, or they're always reaching out to support, but they're not active in community. Talk to them to understand why. Like maybe they don't know it exists. Maybe they don't understand why they should do it. Maybe they just, who knows what the reason is. And then I also try to talk to people who are longtime customers, but actually don't use the community. So they're advocates for us. They love the product, but they're not in the community. Why is that? And so kind of digging into all of those layers when possible. And if the customer community has been around for a while, it's also helpful to talk to people. If you're noticing like a year ago, this person was really active in the community and suddenly they're not anymore. What happened there? And so it's a lot of detective work of understanding those things and then understanding those trends in what people are saying.
So how do you find the purpose of your customer community?
Yeah, I think a lot of that goes back to building a community strategy, which comes out of a lot of those discovery calls that you're doing at the beginning when you're joining a team, understanding like what's working and what's not working for customers, what they want to see. And then also when you're talking to internal stakeholders, understanding the business need. What does sales want to see? What does product need? What does customer success need? And what I like to try to do is map those all out on a whiteboard somewhere and then see what's the Venn diagram. Where's the overlap? What are customers asking for that we also want internally? And then that's the best way to move forward and craft your strategy. Once you understand that, you can craft a purpose statement because you're building community for these customers. So it should be relevant to them, but you can't forget that you also work in a business. So it has to also be relevant to business needs and business goals.
Can you give me some examples of business goals that you can look for that will align with customer goals?
So I joined Hit Health earlier this year. And so I've kind of been doing all of these exercises, and we're kind of at the point now where we're going to be doing a soft launch, the renovated, refreshed community. And one of the things that I heard a lot from our customers is, the product's great, but there's so many different ways to use it. Like I can set up so many different workflows. I want to learn what other people are doing, what's working for them, what's best practices, how can I learn from other people also using the product? And something that I heard from our product team is like, we want to hear from more people. Always reach out to the support or just people that, you have good relationships with. So you reached out to the same people over and over again, which I think is very common and normal. And so we want to see more conversations around how people are using our product. And so that was a very natural overlap of customers want to see how other folks are using the product. And our product team also wants to see that in terms of product feedback, guiding the roadmap, and all of that good stuff. And so that was a really clear overlap. And so with this community refresh, one of the big parts of the strategy was honing in on one pillar of product and customer insights of how do we create space and encourage people to share more about how they're using Hint as they're building out their clinics.
What are some common reasons that longtime customers are not using the community?
Sometimes it's simply like they don't have time. What I've noticed is your most successful customers often are so successful, they don't have time to do anything else but run their business. This is assuming it's a B2B customer community. That's what I've seen a lot is like your top 1 to 5%, like they're crushing it based on all metrics. And so they're so busy doing their thing that they're probably not in the community. What I actually tend to see more is people who are getting started, but kind of figuring out how to grow. They tend to be really active in terms of asking questions and helping each other out because they're all trying to like figure it out together. And then there's people who are pretty successful. They generally know what they're doing, but maybe they're not like crushing their goals the way they want to. those are the type of people that I tend to see participate a little bit more in the community in terms of answering questions and being like mentors or things like that. But the top 1%, I find, is rare to see in the community.
Is it a problem that your top customers aren't using the community, or do you just want to focus on the users who are really engaged?
For me, I don't particularly mind. I think there are other ways to leverage their expertise and bring them into the fold. Like, those are the types of people that I would tap to speak at an annual conference or do a webinar or something like that. I'm not going to bug them and try to make them, answer a community post or something like that. If they're really busy, I think if they are so successful, one way to really like take what they're doing, the advice and their learnings, is to put them on a bigger stage. And so I think that's one way to involve them in customer community initiatives where it's not necessarily like a day-to-day discussion or a post, but they're participating in like a community event or something where they're reaching a lot more people at once. And the other part of it, when I ask these types of people, like, how would you want to be a part of the community? They want a really specific ask. Like, if you're just saying, okay, you show up in the community and like check it out, answer questions when you can, they're never going to do it because it's not the top priority. But if you say like, hey, I'm doing this program and I'm looking for a mentor and the commitment is 1 hour per month for 3 months, then they can be like, okay, I can carve out that specific time to participate because it's a very clear ask versus just show up in the community and answer questions when you can.
Can a customer community help build a relationship or build a kind of a back and forth between a product team and a customer they're trying to serve?
Like, I definitely see that in the past at other companies that I've worked with. And that's something that we want to do here too, is really build a customer product feedback loop. And so we want to make sure that we are gathering inputs from our customers of how they're using the product, what's working, what's not working. Maybe we thought this feature made a lot of sense, but they're actually going in some circular way to get the exact same result. And that's not what we want. And so kind of seeing how people talk about the product, how they use it, and then taking that feedback and implementing it and keeping that in mind as we are updating or releasing new features. And then continuing kind of that loop of having, frequent updates and frequent webinars with our product team within the community, is saying like, hey, this is what we heard. This is what's been released. We're going to be focusing on that. In the coming quarter, we'll have betas, we'll have an advisory group in the community, and then, kind of continuing that where we're constantly getting feedback from customers, taking that, implementing it, releasing it, letting folks know, and then continuing that iteration within that product and customer feedback loop.
How do you balance customer content and customer discussions versus brand content in a customer community?
I lean heavily towards as much like customer driven stuff as possible because it is a customer community and communities are for people to talk to each other, and it's not your email subscription. This isn't a one-to-many forum, it's a many-to-many forum. And so I always lean towards as much customer-driven conversation as possible. And if customers also have ideas for different initiatives or challenges or events that we can do, I want to support them in doing that. And I think it's important to elevate and help them do what they want to do in the community rather than always pushing what the business or brand wants, because we have other channels like our email list or our social media accounts to share stuff out. And so while I always want to make sure that they have access to the latest from our company, the bulk of the conversation should be customers talking to customers.
And what kind of content or discussions are you seeing in customer communities that really drive engagement?
I think for customer communities, a lot of the things that resonate with people tend to be around like, how are you doing something with the product? Because that's usually why you're there, because it is a customer community. You use the product. It's not necessarily like a community of practice per se. And so you're probably there to ask people how to do something, if it's possible, or how to do it in a way that's more streamlined. And so I think those types of conversations tend to have the most engagement or kind of resonate the most with people. You'll definitely see some where it's like, you ask a question and like, this is the clear way to do it. And one person answers, you're like, good to go. But sometimes things can be a little bit more complicated, or there's like 5 different ways to do something. And so seeing that discussion of, I've done this and this is how it worked, or I tried that and that's how it worked, I think works out really well. And then I think out of that, you'll also see some questions that naturally kind of lean more towards like the discipline or the practice of that's related to the product. So HIT is a software for clinicians who are opening their own direct care practices. And so we'll see people obviously asking like, hey, how do I use HIT to, bill my members? Or how do I use HIT to set up my patient chart or whatever? But we'll also see people talk generally about like, hey, I'm trying to find a clinic space. What are some things to keep an eye out for? Or I need to increase or want to fill my patient panel. You do on HIT specifically, but it is related to what all of these people are doing. So you'll also see lots of conversations around that.
Do you think marketing teams can take a look at questions in the customer community and develop content based on those questions?
Yeah, totally. So our market team, actually, our head of marketing does a monthly marketing office hours, and he keeps an eye on what are people talking about in the community, and then also keeping a pulse on what are our initiatives internally and what do we want to focus on. So the other month, we noticed more people were talking about AI. How do I use AI in my clinic? Can I find a virtual assistant AI? Or how do I use Copilot to transcribe my patient notes and put that in the chart or things like that? And so he put together a marketing office hours around using AI for marketing. What's top of mind for our customers in our community is also going to be top of mind for other customers not in the community, or leads or prospects, and just like the industry at large.
How do you find and enable community champions to engage with the customer community?
I usually look at people who are already posting a lot and answering a lot. I think that latter part is important, of people who are also giving back, because it's awesome that some people ask a bunch of questions, but it's even better when they're both asking questions and answering them and sharing how they're doing things. One of the values that I'm putting into the HIT community is give more than you take. Ask questions, sure, but also give back, reply to people, share how you're doing things, even just say thank you when somebody gives you that, so that they know it's valuable and helpful, I think goes a long way. And so I try to look for people who do that, who start conversations, who are encouraging of others, who share their expertise, even if they don't know how to do everything. And so I think those are people who you want as community champions. And then in terms of like actually creating the program and making them community champions and setting all of that up, I usually do a mix of both an application process and, nominating people. Sometimes people surprise you and they will, apply to be a community champion. And you thought originally like, oh, there's no way they're going to say yes. They're too busy, And so sometimes it's nice to just open up the floor. Or sometimes people surprise you and you're like, oh, I didn't notice that you were really active. But as I'm looking at your profile, you actually do fit what I'm looking for. And so I think it's always helpful to kind of open the floor and let people raise their hands. But I'll also reach out to people and say like, hey, I think you're a great fit for this. You're already doing all of these things. I'd love to formalize that relationship. And then, with the program, making expectations really clear of what can champions expect of the company and you as the community person, and what can you expect of them. So it's a two-way relationship.
What are the benefits to those potential community champions?
It depends on the program that you're building, and it depends on the champions and, the customers. And so for one of the programs that I've done in the past, they got like a free subscription to our premium product line. Everything else was free. So they got that free subscription. And because they were getting a free subscription, we also did have stronger requirements of how do you stay a part of this like MVP group. They had to contribute more frequently and be active more frequently, versus in other champion programs that I've done, The perks was more along the lines of getting early access to information, having a seat at the table, being a part of an advisory board, being able to get connected with our C-suite once a quarter or things like that. And so the requested lift was a little bit lighter of, hey, we just want you to be engaged. We want you to do these things. But it wasn't like a you must post 2 times or whatever. And then some other things that I've done in the past in terms of incentives are like when we have our annual summit, there's a special champions only event or, champions only swag or challenges, perks, things like that. But I think with those, one of the most helpful things is just to ask them, what do they want? Like, is having a seat at the table, being able to talk to the CEO, something you like actually care about? Or like, do you love swag and do you want like a really cool jacket? Because we can make it all happen, but you want to align incentives with what they actually like.
How do you show the value of a customer community?
I always think about it in 2 different buckets. One is community health metrics. Is the community healthy first and foremost? Because it's very hard to provide business value if your community is not healthy. Like if there's nobody speaking, we don't even need to start talking about business value because there's not really start thinking more about community value. And so that all goes back to your community strategy of like, what is the purpose of your customer community? So if the purpose of your community is, I don't know, helping sales, for example, then partnering with your sales lead to figure out what are we going to look at. For us, one of the things that we've been looking at is actually how many deals are we closing with community as a closed won reason? Because our sales team is awesome and they show off the community and the customer resources that we have as they're demoing the product. Not every sales team does that. And so I'm very lucky that they already do that and they're happy to talk about it. And so that's one way where we can understand, the perceived value of the community as they're talking to folks in, the space in general. Other things that you can look at as the community kind of gets more mature is how are people who participate in the community different than people who aren't in the community? So looking kind of at it cohort based of, are people in the community more likely to adopt new products? Are they more likely to have a higher NPS? Are they more likely to not churn? Are they more likely to expand or grow their deal size?
How do you generate marketing content from a customer community?
Part of it is paying attention to what people talk about and surfacing those types of trending topics to the team so that they can create blog content or social media content around what's popular in the industry. And then the other part of it, one thing that I really like is the customer marketing piece. And so, when you're seeing people talk about their success stories in the community or they're just talking about what's working and what's not working, that's a great way to see like, hey, this person could be a fantastic testimonial or really great case study. And so I try to surface those success stories to our marketing team so that we can reach out to them, grab snippets from that conversation for a testimonial, or do even a deeper dive interview to be able to put together a case study to publish.
Are there examples of types of stories or phrases customers are using in the community that lead you to think this could be great for a bigger content play?
I think for testimonials, it's usually pretty straightforward. Like if they just say, oh my God, I love this, or this is a game changer, I'll usually reach out and be like, hey, love this quote. Is it cool if we use it on our website? And then for the bigger case studies or customer marketing type of things, those usually actually tend to come out of, I'll see somebody talking in the community and actively participating. So those are the people that I'll reach out to be like, hey, are you up for a coffee chat? I'm just trying to get to know people and build relationships with people in the customer community. In those calls, I'll dive deeper into, hey, how did you even get started with direct primary care? How is it going? What's been successful? What's been challenging? Kind of dig deeper into their journey. And then if it's a really great story or they're really eloquent or whatever it is, or even like sometimes I'll know like our marketing team is looking for specific personas or specific specialties, types of customers, I'll flag those types of people for them. So I usually try to have a bit of a conversation with them first.
What mistakes are you seeing that brands are making when building their customer communities?
I think the main one that you tend to see is kind of the classic you build it and they'll come. If you just spin up a forum or if you spin up a Slack, the customers will just show up. And maybe they do log in the first time. Maybe they do make an account, but it's unlikely you'll see sustained activity in a true community. I think that tends to be the same mistake of not prioritizing and resourcing it and giving it the care that it needs. And communities are, living, breathing things. There are people who are a part of it. And if there's no activity, it's really silent. People, they don't see you participate, like you as the brand participating in it. Why would they? There's plenty of places to be on the internet and in person. Like they don't need to waste time in a Slack or a forum where you can't even be bothered to show up. Like people can tell. And so I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make. They think having a community is easy. And on the surface, it sounds easy, but actually having it be engaged and vibrant and thriving requires a lot of care. It's kind of like a garden. Looks easy to have beautiful flowers because you don't see the behind the scenes work.
How do you make a community a unique place for customers to spend their time when they have all these other choices of places to spend time on the internet?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've been trying to figure out for the Hint community, because direct primary care clinicians they have all kinds of Facebook groups, and they don't necessarily, it's not a group of people that aren't already gathering. And so for me, it was going back to those discovery calls and asking people, what's missing? Like, you're participating in the broader direct care community. What do you wish you saw more of? What is something that you want and you're not seeing? And a lot of the things that I got from that is like, I want to see how people are specifically using the Hint product. How are they doing direct care with Hint? I want to learn from other people who are doing it, because they can have more of the general conversations around opening their clinic or being a doctor elsewhere. And they do have those conversations, but they're not necessarily having the deeper conversations of like, how do I set up my clinical workflow with Hint? And that's a conversation you want to have with other customers. There also needs to be, a lot of buy-in from our internal teams of, we're going to actively participate in this, have conversations about how people are using Hint, and also make sure that they're involved in how we are building and improving the product.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to wrap up. Thank you so much, Jocelyn.
Thanks, Alex.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of StoryProof. The goal is that there are tactics or strategies you can use right away in your customer marketing. And speaking of customer marketing, that's where we come in. We turn customer love into effective video stories that can be easily repurposed into sales and marketing efforts. So if you'd like to learn more, check out our website or shoot me a message. Thanks.